Sometimes video game bosses are meant to be atmospheric and scary. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, 10 terrifying video game bosses. At number 10 is Bloodborne's Ebrietas, the daughter of the cosmos. Ebrietas is located in a hidden spot in the upper cathedral ward. You get to it by breaking through a window. It's not necessarily hostile when you see it. The only way it will attack you is if you attack it. It retaliates. The face basically looks like the cosmos with like this nasty eye-covered flesh mound built around it. It's kind of a weirdly gross slimy mass with lots of tentacles with lots of eyeballs and slime. Like, did I mention there's slime? There's a lot of slime. But it's also kind of a chaotic boss, which is difficult to really understand what's going on sometimes. But it's kind of this cosmic horror and, in truth, genuinely a frightening thing. If I saw that in real life, that's it. I'd check out. At number 9 is Obscura from The Evil Within 2, which is really a strange creature. Its appearance is, of course, not a nice one. Very few things in The Evil Within are, beautiful in some way. It takes on the shape of kind of a spider, kind of a woman, and kind of a camera. It's also kind of hard to tell whether it's having fun or in pain from the sounds it makes. You have to fight it when Sebastian tries to activate the stable field emitter. It basically plays hide and seek, cat and mouse, and it moves really bizarrely. It sort of will stand around and then quickly move, jump on the ceiling. You have to shoot it in the camera because it seems like that's how it sees. It also uses sound to great effect. The tenseness of the battle just keeps ramping up, and by the time you're done with it, it's really hard to kind of calm down. However, when you finally do get the stable field emitter activated, it just ends the boss, which is nice. At number 8 is the Caretaker from Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. He's one of the first things you see when you enter the Von Everett estate during the quest Scenes from Marriage in the Hearts of Stone expansion. And he is not a cool looking guy. He's got no eyes, no nose. And for whatever reason, that's always really weird. When you see this guy, it gives you chills. Like, there's a lot of spooky stuff you end up seeing in this mansion, but he just opens everything up and sets the tone because he's probably the creepiest. It might surprise you just a little bit, but this guy was a demon summoned by the Lord of the Manor, Olgierd von Everett, whose descent into madness is explored pretty thoroughly throughout the quest. Honestly, I kind of just want to see his skull. Like, is it solid where there would be eyes and a nose? Or maybe I don't. Maybe I don't want those nightmares. Maybe that would be a bad idea. It looks like somebody actually did try to peer in there, though, and they had to sew him back up. That definitely aids the weirdness of him.
What the was that?
At number 7 is King Dice from Cuphead. He's the boss just before the last, and he's a massive endurance test. I mean, it's basically a boss rush, but all of the bosses are new, and there's 9 of them. The whole fight has a really creepy atmosphere too, especially some of the backgrounds. But like, if you were ever scared at certain parts of like children's cartoons, I can name a couple, perhaps the donkey transformation scene in Pinocchio, things along that line. This is definitely going to just like reignite that little memory for you, because that's what it sometimes looks like. The most bizarre parts of the fight are against Pip and Dot, the dominoes, and Mangosteen, the 8-ball. I do not like Mangosteen's face, and though I wouldn't really say that the appearance of Pip and Dot is really what's going to get your heart rate up, it's more along the lines of the actual environment you're stuck fighting it in, which you're going to have a ton of trouble with because there's spikes everywhere. It's just a really stressful fight, and yeah, I understand it's cartoony, but in some respects, I think it sort of gets back to a little bit of a primal fear we might have of A, chaos, and B, like I said, some of that imagery from children's cartoons that used to be a lot scarier than they are now. At number 6 is Jenova Dreamweaver for the Final Fantasy VII Remake, which was a brand new boss, didn't exist in the original game. Originally, you first fought Jenova on the boat from Junon to Costa del Sol. Here you fight Jenova after Sephiroth kills President Shinra. which, I mean, in terms of the actual overall story is a lot earlier. However, obviously this game is a bit of a deviation. It's only Midgar, and we don't really know where we're going after Midgar. But in that respect, Jenova is pretty freaky in the original game, however, is gross as hell in this game. Jenova clearly hasn't really reconstituted itself and is just kind of a mess of parts and slime, and it's also quite tough. Honestly, the original game does a good job of building a scary atmosphere around this stuff, but I would say that the remake does an even better job on account. It brings a lot of new elements into the story and sort of almost creates an even horrific element to it. Is it necessarily the scariest thing you'll ever see? Maybe not, but I have a feeling it's leading us towards scarier stuff in the remake sequels. At number 5 is Blasphemous from Expósito, Scion of Abjuration. This game has some pretty weird imagery, but this thing is probably the weirdest. It's the boss of the artwork storage area, Sleeping Canvases. Now, it's a giant baby with a blindfold held by, I guess, a woman. I mean, I can't name that definitively. It's got a crown of thorns, and also there's this snake with a human head that attacks you. It's maybe something that doesn't really feel like you're scared at the time, but then you dream about it, and you're like, oh, that's what that stress was. Terror. Because it's not the hardest boss you've ever seen in your life. However, it's weird. And it's weird in a way that sticks with you. Here's the in-game description. This little one stopped crying as soon as we placed him in the arms of that wicker woman, as if it were his mother. Sometimes I can't help but think there's something living in that wicker. Sometimes it seems to be rocking him in the darkness. What? That's just weird. At number 4 is Mutated Calie from Gravity Rush 2. I'm gonna go ahead and say that explaining the events that lead up to Mutated Calie is basically impossible within the time allotted in one of these videos. Basically, what happens is the way one of the characters regenerates enters a positive feedback loop, and things get nasty. It's a really sort of cosmic horror / apocalyptic looking mutation of a character in the game. It's a series of events where you're just like, wait, what? That just escalates into this cosmic horror. It's gross and it reminds me of Resident Evil, and there's nothing else in this game anything like that. It's normally a pretty lighthearted game, so to have something that's just outwardly gross in it is kind of bizarre. But hey, that's what it is. At number 3 is Flowey from Undertale, the final boss of the neutral route. Now, the way that they managed to make this particularly weird is that Flowey starts off in pixel form, doing some frankly odd stuff. The music is quite scary, it sets a scary tone, and then the game just drops pixel art altogether. I don't really know what to call the kind of art that Flowey becomes. It's not pixel art. It's kind of bizarre paintings that look like something out of the Black Hole Sun music video, made into a horrific creature. I'm not going to be able to really tell you exactly how it goes from the flower at the beginning of the game that gives you a combat tutorial to why it's the last boss of the neutral route, but it's definitely unexpected and weird and nightmarish and gross in its own special way. At number 2 is Resident Evil 7 Marguerite Baker, who is the boss of the second house of the game. She's the second Baker you have to deal with after you beat Jack in the basement. She is kind of a bug, not entirely though. She's got some long, very freaky arms, and she appears to be gradually transforming into a mold thing. I don't really know how to describe that. It's perhaps one of the most atmospheric boss fights in the game. And as it progresses, Marguerite gets just freakier and freakier. Part of the freakiness of it is that it just seems relentless. You have no idea when it's going to end, and when it finally does, it's kind of like anticlimactic in a weird way, and it makes you feel as though like, wow, that just felt like it was never gonna stop. You feel exhausted afterwards because it's stressed you out and freaked you out, and when at the end your character says just effing stay dead, it makes sense. It's a line that lands. And finally, at number 1 is the Orphan of Kos in Bloodborne, which is a boss that just screams its head off at you the entire time, and it is just incredibly unsettling. Like, the Orphan of Cause is by no means pleasant looking, and its sword, or whatever that is, looks pretty diseased. It's basically this long, gangly, freaky, humanish, skeleton-ish thing that seems to come out of the corpse of a whale or something. Like I said, its weapon is diseased. It's its own entrails, or perhaps the whale's entrails. I don't really know exactly how to categorize it, but that's what it's using as a weapon. It's not just scary because it's freaky looking and that it screams at you, but it's also really hard because it's very aggressive and very chaotic. We have to mention the Resident Evil Remake's Tyrant, or Mr. X, whatever you want to call him. He's really intimidating, obviously, but he's not just scary because of that. It's how he stalks you through the police station endlessly that I think makes him particularly freaky, because he just does not relent. And that's going to wrap it up for this video. Which of these bosses did you find particularly scary? Leave us a comment, let us know. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. The best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. As always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero. We'll see you next time, right here on gameranx.